Hello everyone and welcome back to Wratting Road. It's been a while now since the last layout update video. It's certainly long overdue because I haven't done one in a good 5 to 6 months since April or March earlier on in the year. So that'll be the video for today and I hope you enjoy watching it. I want to say a big hello to all of the newer subscribers and followers to the layout and the channel or my other social medias. Thanks for the support and thanks for all the comments you give me or however you support me, whether it's likes, dislikes, comments. Anything like that. And also hello and also a thank you as well to all of the continued viewers and all those who regularly check in to watch my videos as well. All support is greatly appreciated equally, so I thank everybody all the same. As you can see, I've got some trains running around the layout which you'll see throughout the course of the video. Coming through the tunnel now, or exiting the tunnel rather, is my Class 90 hauled container train. That Class 90 is actually a new addition to the layout and I'll be talking about that later on in the video when I talk about the other new additions. And you'll see in a moment the other train running around, which is the Class 37 hauled test train, made up of 37424, which you've seen in the past, along with some Network Rail test train coaches. Haven't got that much variety at the moment, but that will change eventually. So in the video, I'll be bringing you a full layout tour, going over what's changed since the last video and also since the last layout update, covering all the areas and what's changed on any of them. Then I go over the new additions of stock and also the future plans, and then finishing off with a running session providing I've got enough time. So without wasting any more time, I'm going to get straight on with the layout tour part of it, and I hope you enjoy the video. So starting off on this side of the layout, this is my tunnel area, which simply acts as a scenic break between the non-scenic section and the scenic section. Serves no other purpose than that really, but it does create a nice atmosphere around the rest of this part of the layout. It's a rather standard looking embankment, but it is a fairly good size. It does span across about 1.5 meters or so, if I was to guess. The area hasn't changed at all since the last layout update. I did briefly talk about adding a little scene somewhere up the top, but I'll put that thought into the back of my head for reasons I'll explain later on in the video. So there's nothing really more to say about the tunnel area, but any questions, feel free to ask. And then from the tunnel area, we come to this little corner of the layout. This little scene is a footpath scene, and the idea is that it's on top of a disused railway that got lifted during the beaching cuts. So you've got your footpath there, and then there's also some little parts of railway infrastructure. So you've got a telegraph pole, some old line side fence posts and some other little bits and pieces in there to give that impression. And if I just come over to the left, you'll also see the disused signal box up the top there. So looking from here, you can sort of get an idea on what the scene looks like as if you was a figure. So right at the top, you've got your signal box overlooking the area. And then you've got some people populating the area as well with some other little bits and items of detail. So it's a rather nice little scene and I did enjoy making it. There are a couple of videos I made surrounding it, so if you are interested then feel free to check those out. The idea is that the branch line would have diverted from the main line many years ago before the line was lifted during the 1960s beaching cuts. So then that serves the purpose of the signal box being there. And that signal box in particular is based off the one of the Bishop Stortford disused box on the West Anglia main line. So it's a Metcalfe signal box that I adapted, and again I did make a couple of videos surrounding that as well, so you can always check those out as well if it's something you're interested in. And then the end of the path just leads to a foot crossing which crosses the main line, and that's only accessible via Network Rail or personnel or railway workmen. So as you can see, there's a figure there who's about to cross the main line and then over to the depot or wherever he needs to go to work. This area hasn't changed since the videos I made about it and also since the last layout update video, but there's no means why I can't add to it in the future, and I do plan to, but for now I'll keep that quiet until later on in the video when I discuss future plans. Coming over from the footpath scene now to more central in the layout, This is the beginnings of the Freightliner depot, and this is the area I've been working on over the last few months and what all the videos have been covering. So this is the latest area on the layout, if you like, since the last layout update video. So on the reception road there's two sets of points. Straight on will lead to a electrified siding which will be occupied by Freightliner electric locomotives, and as you can see I've got a couple more Class 90s in there at the moment. The catenary doesn't come far into the siding at all because the rest of the masts I need to scratch build. So that's where one road leads to, and then the actual points themselves. One leads to the sidings, which are the sidings occupied by all of the Freightliner diesels. So I've got a few 66s in there as well as a 57. And then the other sets of points leads to the head shunt, which is that unoccupied piece of track. The head shunt will be used by the locomotives just to reverse into the facility area to access all of the facilities, and then the facilities will consist of a wagon storage siding, refuelling point, another loco stabling siding, a wash road, inspection pit, anything you expect to see on a Freightliner depot in the facilities. So that'll be quite an exciting area once that starts to get built. So I hope that gives an idea on how the depot will function. It certainly will hopefully be a bit interesting. And then the car park at the back, that's the area I've been working on in the most recent videos, and since the last one it has changed a little bit. I have added to it and sorted a few things out, so I'm going to go over to there now and just show you what's changed since that video. So now that I'm over by the car park, you can hopefully get an idea that it does look a little bit different since the last video, but I will come up and closer look and just briefly go over what's changed and what I've added. The biggest change in the car park is the container, which received quite a lot of attention since the last video. I received quite a few comments giving a bit of criticism towards it and just giving some advice and tips on how to make it better, and I took it all on board, came away and had a rethink and more or less redone the whole job. I redone the interior lighting, and all the wiring is now on the inside of the container, so I filled the old hole as well and then blended it all in as best as I can. Removed all the old greenery that was on top of it, and I've kept all the weathering the same, and I've just finished off the area by rearranging all of the detailing surrounding it, adding some more and giving everything a bit of a weathered up that needed it. I hope you can agree it looks much nicer than what it did before. I'm certainly glad I redone everything and now it looks how it should. I want to say thank you to someone who recommended using copper tape for the wiring installation on the inside, and you made my life a hell of a lot easier doing that, so a big thank you to you. But I cannot remember your name, but I'm sure you know who you are, so thank you to you. So looking at this angle, you can see that I have had a rearrange of the detailing around the container. I moved a figure there from somewhere else, and I've made him hold a tail lamp. I also added some flashing tail lamps on the shelves alongside a high-vis jacket hanging up. And then over in the distance you can see a red Corsa parked up as well, which is another new addition. The small row of cars hasn't changed. The only thing I've done is put a figure underneath the boot of the Galaxy to make him look like he's actually having a look inside. And I also added some more detailing into the car's boot, but you can't see it from this angle, and I didn't take a photo before I glued the figure down, which I should have done, so apologies for that. But the details I've added in there are high-vis bib, a driver's bag and a hard hat, and then obviously the driver figure looks like he's just reaching in to get something. Before, he was next to the transit van that had the flat tyre, so it just made a lot more sense having him in there underneath the boot. Here's a couple of transit vans. The one closest in shot has a flat tyre, and then the owner is just standing there with his arms in his pockets, wondering what to do, wondering how he's going to get home. And then this transit van is a new addition to the car park. It's a Network Rail transit van, and I've added the scale model scenery, roof bars and ladder kit to it just for a bit of detail to it. And it's parked there, and I think it gives a bit of scope to have some railway workers in the depot as if they're doing some maintenance on something. So gives a bit of idea for the future more than anything. Got some more vehicles in the form of a E92 BMW M3 and then an old VW transporter, and I've arranged these as if the transporter's coming in to the depot and then he's parking up to start his shift, and then the BMW driver is waiting to leave the depot and letting him come in first, even though the driver thinks he should have get right of way because he's a typical BMW owner. So it's difficult to see in this shot, but I have added drivers in them just for the added realism that the Oxford diecast cars don't come with. The final vehicle I added is this old Ford Sierra Sapphire Cosworth, and this is another Oxford diecast vehicle which I've painted up a little bit. I painted the spoiler, the wing mirrors and the side skirts because they were wrongly painted black, and I've just put some different wheels on there to make it look more like the traditional boy racer Cosworth. The two figures are from Model U that I painted up, and the chap with all the bags is Little Dave, who owns the Cosworth, and then you've got Big Dave on the left, who tells him about his skinny youth days and how he regrets sending his old XR2 Fiesta. So has a bit of personal meaning on the layout because I do love my old Fords in real life, so having an old Cosworth on the layout certainly can't go amiss with me, and having the two figures there and knowing the meaning behind it just adds a bit of humour as well. Moving on to the smaller items of detailing now, I added a bit of drainage to the car park because it can't be without it. It's that pure keys of realism, I think. Around the light in the centre of the car park, I added a bit of Woodland Scenic's gravel chippings just to create a bit of a rough surface, as if the cars don't really drive over that area much, so all of the loose chippings end up there. And then I've made the area look damp, and then apply some static grass around the light as well. And then, as you can see, I've put another little drain in there. So the damp effect and all the grass growing up alongside it just creates that maybe there's a blocked drain, and it also just breaks up the concrete area nicely as well, I think. Just makes it a bit less in your face, and I think it just makes the area a little bit more interesting, and I hope you can agree on that. And then at the back of the car park, there's a little derelict portion, which I thought would be rather interesting because it's not something you often see modelled. So that's just to represent a place where there's no cars that go onto that area, so it all just gets overgrown and uncared for, hence all of the static grass and bushes and shrubs and all of the junk chucked around. I haven't really changed it since the last videos. I've just added some fine turf above on top of all the static grass just to enhance the effect a bit more, and then just give everything a weathering that needed doing. So with all those small details now in place, I'm really happy with how the car park is, and I'm happy to now move away and say it's finished for the time being. But that doesn't mean I won't add to it in the future as and when I get some more ideas for it. Any ideas you may have or any questions, please do feel free to let them know in the comments, and I'll see what I can do, see how I feel, and just answer any questions you may have. So now coming away from the Freightliner depot area, the Mainline continues with the reception road running alongside it, and this is more or less as far as I've got with scenery. So from here on it's just plain ballast, but the Mainline and everything has been detailed and all the rest of it. And it just goes up to where the second Scenic brake will be up there, so I'm just going to go up there now and just show you that. So the main line and the reception road continue from that point and just come round here, up this straight. I'm going to try and keep it as gentle as I can. And then where the ballasting stops is where the second Scenic brake will be roughly. The Scenic brake over here will be a road over rail bridge, and then I'm going to have a road scene coming off over in this direction. And I'm just going to have a low relief town scene or little street scene along here on another embankment where the two bowls are there. This is where I tend to keep all the mess at the moment. And then there'll be a road over rail bridge over there as well somewhere for a bit of interest, but that's all ideas for the future, which I'll talk about later on. So at the moment this isn't really the most interesting part of the layout, but obviously, as I said, it is ready for track weathering. It's all been ballasted and detailed up, so everything's all ready to go really. And then the ballasting just stops, and then that's the non-scenic section over there. So once the Scenic brake happens over there, the two main lines continue, and there's no points on them whatsoever. So the trains can just run round and round and round with ease and no running issues, which is nice and simple. And then all the operational interest goes into the Freightliner depot, so I do have some storage yards for that. So there's 4 of those there for that, and then I've got a 5th one just off camera which I use for the programming track. which is there. So it is a very basic fiddle yard. I don't use the fiddle yard term too much because of how basic it is. The layout isn't big enough to have a full massive scale fiddle yard like other layouts, which I am jealous of, but hopefully I'll be able to one day. So once the trains come from this direction, they just enter the tunnel from that cardboard box cut out, and then out of the tunnel mouth there to complete the circuit. So it is a nice simple mainline roundy. Any questions about the layout, do feel free to get in touch and ask, and I'll happily answer them. In the past I've been asked quite a few times to show a shot of the layout showing its full size roughly, and just to give you an idea of the size, the dimensions are 10 foot long and 8 foot wide, so it certainly isn't the biggest layout in the world, but it is ideal for a first time layout. I certainly wouldn't have wanted any smaller or any much bigger, to put it at that. To put it into perspective, the container train you can see running round is made up of 13 wagons plus the loco. So by the time it's on the Scenic section, it's occupied the vast majority of it anyway. So I won't be able to add that much more wagons before it becomes a bit too long for the layout. Hopefully the next layout will be much bigger, so I can have prototypical container trains modelled. So that is one of my lifelong modelling ambitions, to be able to do that, because I am an intermodal fanatic, as regular followers of the channel will know. But I just wanted to round up the layout tour with this shot, so I hope you get an idea of the size. And again, any questions, feel free to get in touch and I'll answer them as best as I can. So now I'm going to move on to the next part of the layout update video, which is the new additions of stock. So I'll move on and show you those. The first new addition is this Bachmann Class 90, which is Freightliner triple grey 90048. I bought this model from Squirrel Rail on RMWeb, and he done a tremendous job on doing the model up, detailing it. He used the rail freight distribution model as the donor, and then he just done all the necessary modifications to make it as accurate as possible. So he's done a real nice job overall, and I really do love it. Probably my favourite 90 in the fleet now, to be honest. The only thing I need to do to it is just put it onto a different chassis. It needs to go onto a Freightliner Powerhaul chassis, so then it's got the correct battery box, which is this thing here. But apart from that, job's all good, and he's done a lovely job on it. This was the 90 you saw hauling the container train in the layout tour part of the video. So yeah, nothing more to say about it, but I really do like it, and it does make a real nice addition to have, and it's always nice to have something different. The next addition is this Bachmann Class 66, which is 66711 in GBRF one-off Aggregates Industries livery, and the nameplate is Sense. So for a change, I haven't got a Freightliner model. This model so far has been detailed at one end, and I've fitted a Model U driver figure in the cab, changing over for the silly old Bachmann one. And I'm keeping this model aside, so it will be the first model that has everything done by myself. So I've been sound fitted it, detailed it, and weathered it as well at the end. So it'll be finally be nice to have something on the layout I can finally turn around and say I've done everything to it. And then once I've done that, it'll be a matter of getting hold of some decent GBRF wagons for it to haul around the layout. So once that happens, it'll be a regular sight. The next model is this DRS 37, which is a Lima model, and it's 37611 in original DRS livery. Normally I overlook the cheaper end of the market for the more higher end stuff like from Bachmann, but because this was given to me by a friend for nothing, I'm just going to put a bit of effort into it, bring it up to date, make it look a bit special. So the plans for this is to maybe have it on either a VI Trains Class 37 chassis or a Hornby Railroad chassis, just so then I can have it as a runner and have it DCC ready. The VI Trains one would also be a nice provider for lighting as well, rather than having to tweak all of the electronics. In terms of livery, it will still stay in DRS, but I'll be having it in as 37422, which is the unbranded DRS 37, which was stationed at Norwich to be used on the short sets, and I believe it was also a Thunderbird loco there as well, so plenty of scope for the model, and it would certainly suit the layout due to its location that it's set on. Once I know what I want to do with the chassis, it will just be a matter of detailing it, weathering it, and just making it look rather special and presentable, at least next to the Bachmann models I've got. The final new addition to show, and without a doubt the most special one, is this Hornby Pretendolino set that I literally only bought yesterday, so I did have time to fortunately squeeze it in the video. I bought the DVT along with 7 coaches consisting of 4 TSOs, the buffet coach and 2 FOs, so all I need is 1 more TSO and an FO to complete the full set. It's certainly a lovely set indeed, and never did I think I'd be able to get hold of one, but certainly pulled through, and certainly a dream come true for me. None of you will be surprised that the plans for this will be to have it as the Abellio Greater Anglia leased Pretendolino set. So I'll be taking off the Virgin logos and slapping on the Abellio Greater Anglia ones. The DVT will also need its lighting changed for the correct and prototypical LEDs, and then most of the coaches actually have coach lighting in them, so the remaining of the coaches will need to be sorted out. And then I'll be painting the interiors into the correct liveries, adding passengers, you know, the usual drill. So this will certainly look the part once it's all complete. It certainly is a really nice set to have, and you'll be seeing plenty of it in the future in running sessions. What I've got planned for the Lau in the next few months is I really want to start working on the depot facility area, which is this part. There's a few track alterations I need to make and modifications, but I've also got some depot buildings coming just so I can start having a little play around placing and just seeing how everything feels and looks. And obviously, as you can see, I've got the Pico inspection pit to also install, but I need to get some lighting added to that before I do that. So that will be the main point of interest for the next few months. I'll be working on this area as much as I can predominantly. I'll also be hopefully making a start on the road scene, and the first part I want to get in is the road bridge, just so I can then plan out where the rest of the road will go. I'm hoping the bridge will go roughly where these pen marks are, but what will probably happen is they'll have to come further back, so then the bridge crosses at an angle, but it's still sort of perpendicular to the track, just to make it run a lot better. It'll just be a matter of once I've finished altering the track plan, just to see what would look and work best. So the facility area work will be getting the priority over this. But over in the corner, I'm hoping to have an OHLE feeder station and also a relay room, because then that will explain where all the power comes from for all the infrastructure and all the overhead live electrics as well. You can't have an OHLE railway and no feeder station, in my opinion, so I think this corner will really suit that. I briefly talked about this earlier, but another thing I've got planned and I'm wanting to do is just to fill in this horrible gap, because what happens is the embankment just comes to a complete stop and just looks horrendous in pictures. So I want to just bring it all the way to the end of the baseboard with everything else, just so it matches. Access to the Lau is pretty good from this angle, so I can reach to correct any derailments, but to be honest, this part of the Lau is very reliable, so I haven't really had to do that yet. So that's why I'm taking the plunge and just doing it and filling in the gap. So hopefully I'll be doing that sort of towards the end of the year. It isn't high on the priority list. I just want to get more parts on the Lau done or started before this isn't high in priority whatsoever, but it will still look nice when I'm done. So when I fancy doing a bit of scenery, a bit of plaster work, then that's when I'll do it. Whether or not I'll do a video, I'm not sure. It all depends on what you guys want to see, because ultimately it will just be a repeat of what I've done over there when I've done the how to build my embankments up video several months ago. So yeah, because of that, I'm not 100% sure if it will be video worthy, but we will see. Normally I'd round the video up with a running session, but time really is getting on in this video, so I'm going to round it up now. I did put a community post up about a few days ago now, asking if people would rather see a separate Lau update video and running session videos apart, or if they'd have it all included in the one video and have it longer. But the majority voted for this first option, which is to have 2 separate videos, and to be honest, I'm very much in agreement. So I'm going to round the video off now, and then I'll do a longer running session for the next video just to make up for it, because then I'll get some depot movements in as well, and just make it much more interesting than the same old running shots that I tend to do. Just before I go, I'm just going to make a quick note that I am now on RMWeb, so if you are on that as well, then feel free to check me out. I'm going to leave a link to my RMWeb thread in the description below. It's just another way to keep up to date with the layout and follow it rather than rely on YouTube. But also do check out my other social medias as well. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and I'll leave links to all of those and my RMWeb thread in the description below. So on that note, that brings the video to an end, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. Any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll answer them as best as I can. And until next time, take care, happy modelling, and stay safe.